people, today I want to talk about the city that I live in. It's Berlin, right? I've been living here for like 11, 12 years. It's a really big city and there's still so much to discover. And one question that I get all the time is like, where can I hear some great live music? Where are some jazz jam sessions? So just like people are asking for orientation, and the orientation that I don't even have myself. So I sort of have a little orientation, but of course I don't know everything. Everything is changing all the time. There are around like 150,000 people coming into the city each year and also 150,000 people leaving each year. So there's an influx, like a steady influx of musicians coming and leaving, and when I go somewhere I meet somebody and I'm having a nice conversation, but I don't know if I am ever meeting them again. But of course that's the same way in any big city, I guess. So today I want to give you just like a very personal view of the cities and the clubs that I like. I'm going to link to some resources in the description boxes, and I only have one description box in the description box, and you can try to understand the city for yourself if you want to. There are many websites where the concerts are displayed, but most of the time not every and each concert is on this website, so it's good to have more than one website. It's also good to go look on Facebook for like Veranstaltungen, right? And also just like to subscribe to newsletter maybe in advance if you're planning a trip to Berlin. Check out the clubs here that I'm going to talk about in a minute and subscribe to the newsletter. That's a thing that I'm doing. Another thing to just not completely lose the orientation of what's happening in the city is that I'm subscribing to the newsletter of the artists that I like to see, because most of the time they'll come to Berlin at a given moment, but more often than not I didn't even know that somebody was in town and played, right? And so I'm just subscribing to a lot of newsletter, and yes, I'm just giving you some of the websites that you can use from Berlin in the description box. Let's start with the A Trane. The A Trane is a club that is situated in Charlottenburg, and that's a Kiez that's a little bit more middle class, you can say bourgeois. So the people have a little bit more money, right? Like I said, the Kiezes in Berlin are very different. This is like a more safe area if you want to, so at least I feel safe there. So you can go by S-Bahn to the Savigny place. It's just like one stop away from Zoo, right, very famous Zoo. And then you can just walk to the A Trane. And if you want to eat something without spending all your money that you already spent on everything else in Berlin, I can recommend the ASHOKA. It's like a small, really small Indian restaurant. The only trouble is if you get a place, right? But it's a really small restaurant. It's not too expensive and it's right across the A Trane. So if you want to eat something before the concert, I very often go to the ASHOKA. And the club itself is rather small. It has room for like around 100 persons, and it's maybe posh is maybe not the right word, so I'm going to say read what they say on the website. It's a dignified living room atmosphere, right? So it's also a little higher prices, and I enjoyed great concerts there. It's great acoustic. You can reserve seats in advance. You can reserve if you want to stand or sit. It's going to be packed for sure. In the audience, more or less, you find tourists or people who can afford to visit a concert there. In my opinion, you won't find so many of the musicians, local musicians there, because it's just too expensive for most of us. And they used to have a lot of international jazz musicians. They had a program that was really very cool, but I have the feeling that changed a little bit since the pandemic, and I'm hoping they're coming back with a lot of international jazz musicians again. And they also used to have a late night session, but that's really years ago. That started, I think, Saturday around midnight. And yes, that was really cool because it was so late and went on until 4 o'clock in the morning, and that was more of a meeting point because most of the time you don't have to pay an entrance fee for a jazz session when you're a jazz musician, right? This is changing as well. And I heard rumors that this late night jazz jam session is going to come back, and if it's going to come back, I'm most definitely going to be there. The B-flat is another jazz club that exists for a long time. It moved its location, I think like 10 years ago. Maybe by area the biggest jazz club in Berlin. You go down some steps and it's really big, and there are also different parts of the room where you can sit, so it's more like a club, right? So you can sit in front of the stage, but you can also sit at the bar, but you can also sit sort of in a other part of the room where you can't see the stage, but where you can talk. And the drinks are not so expensive, and also the entrance fee is not so expensive, and you can hear a lot of local musicians from Berlin or from Germany. It's a very relaxed club. I really like to go there. For me, it's like a normal jazz club. And they also have like a jazz jam session every Wednesday night that has been running for many, many years. And it's led by Robin Draganic. Sorry, Robin, if I'm butchering your second name, Draganic. I hope that's right. And he really leads the session, and he really takes care of everyone. So if you say hello to him, you can be pretty sure that you can play. The backstage room is rather small and can be pretty cramped. Depending on the evening, right? Every night is different if you go out. And so what they changed is that you actually have to pay a fee to get into the club, even if you're playing. So like €2. It's not a lot, and I understand it, but also really feels silly at times to pay for play, right? And also they used to have like a refrigerator with cold beer that you just just could grab, or even water, right? So you could get into the club for free and drink something for free, which was really cool. But after the pandemic that changed, and I think it is because everybody needs to look out how they're going to survive. And if that's something that helps a club to survive, then I'm absolutely willing to pay €2 for a jazz jam session. They have a lot of singers there. If you're joining the session as a guitar player, I recommend either bringing the iReal book so that you can really very fast transpose a song, or you just like check out your transposing skills a little bit. So that sometimes freaks me out, but it's also very good training. And then there's the Zigzag. That's a club that I actually have a solid love-hate relationship. It's a great club. It's a little newer. It's outside of the S-Bahn ring, which for the Berliners is like far, far away. But you can reach it with the S-Bahn or the bus or with the car. It's more like in a residential neighborhood area, so not so many people on the street. They have a lot of international jazz musicians, and that's what I like so much about it. So I absolutely recommend to subscribe to the newsletter, because, all of a sudden on a Wednesday evening, Mark Turner is playing, and the next week it's like, Peter Bernstein is playing. Great musicians are playing there. It seems like all the time, and I'm thinking that they're booking the open slots in the tour of the musicians so that they can play on an off evening, or whatever the name of that is. And I think entrance is around €25. They also have like 2 sets at times where you pay extra for each set. So I know in the USA that's very normal. Here in Germany we don't necessarily do that. Normally it's like you pay 1 fee and then you stay for 2 sets and the whole evening. Also, we don't have to drink something, or we can here in Berlin you can buy a glass of water and hold on to it for 3 hours if you want to. And yes, so they have really good players there. They also have a jazz jam session on Tuesday evening, and Uri Ginsel is like running the place. And he's sort of recruiting the people who are playing in the evening, and also like curating the band that are going on stage. So it's a little bit more of a controlled environment, which can be good, but which can also be sometimes frustrating because you're going to have to leave the stage at a certain point. So the Donau 115 is probably the hippest jazz club in Berlin. And it's in Neukölln, and since Neukölln is very far away from where I live, I haven't been there too often, but I have been there, and they have a lot of concerts that are like donation based, and the drinks are not so expensive. So I can only highly recommend the Donau 150 because many great musicians that live in Berlin really play there, and you can hear them for small money, and sometimes have really the feeling the clubs that where the, you know, like the beverages are cheap and there's no entrance fee, or it's like a really low amount of hearing the music, are the best clubs on the one hand, right? For the musicians, sometimes it's of course problematic if you don't get a certain amount of money at the end of the evening, but still this is like a brewing place for young talents, and I think probably the most organically growing place in Berlin at the moment. And the head bar is not a jazz club, very close to Zoo. It's opposite Theater des Westens, if you know it. It's a very small club under the S-Bahn railway. It's more like a bar for cocktails, and it's not so much about the music, it's more about the cocktails, and I find that the staff that is working there also reflects that. But they have a small space, a small stage with a small amp that doesn't sound so good. But still there's a jazz jam session every evening, and if you're lucky you can play the whole night. Find that the music is not the greatest there, but I find also that it's a good place to just, like, you know, get in shape, sort of, just get used to standing on stage and playing a little bit. So this is my rough overview of jazz clubs in Berlin. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will be glad to answer them in the comment sections below. See you around. Bye.